is it jurisdictionally defective for a charge of aggravated family offense in an indictment to fail to identify what specified offense is alleged to have been violated? To find out, you have to read People versus Sanger, but it's 10 pages. Don't have time for that? I've got you covered. This is TLDR, Too Long Didn't Read, where I cover New York Court of Appeals cases, and I try to do it as close to 5 minutes as possible. This is the case of People versus Sanger. The citation for this case is 2023 New York Slip Opinion 02735, published by the New York Court of Appeals on May 18th of 2023. I'll attach a link to the decision and the oral argument in the description. The issue in this case is with respect to a charge for aggravated family offense, which is a crime found under Penal Law Section 240.75, is it jurisdictionally defective for the indictment count not to identify the underlying offense that the person was convicted of, or the misdemeanor that was committed? To understand what's going on here, you have to know that Penal Law Section 240.75, which is the aggravated family offense, is a crime that's been committed when the person commits a misdemeanor on a specific list that's in the statute and has been convicted of one or more specified offenses in the previous 5 years. And the specified offenses is a list in the statute. It's under Subdivision 2. And it contains 54 different offenses, 36 which are felonies and 18 are misdemeanors. Their offenses as varied as assault, harassment, stalking, burglary, sexual offenses, criminal contempt, strangulation, things like that. So what happened here? The facts are that allegedly in 2016, the defendant entered an apartment of his ex-girlfriend in violation of a stay-away order of protection. And while he was in the apartment, he placed his hands around his ex-girlfriend's neck and stole her identification cards. He was charged by indictment with burglary in the second degree, petty larceny, 2 counts of criminal contempt in the first degree, and a count of criminal contempt in the second degree, and aggravated family offense under Penal Law Section 240.75. That's the important one that we're dealing with in this particular case. The indictment did not specify. So an indictment contains each of the counts, each of the charges you're being accused of, and how you've committed that offense. The indictment did not specify the offense, just gave the language of 240.75. It said the defendant committed an offense specified in Subdivision 2 of Section 240.75 of the Penal Law. There was also a bill of particulars, which is a supplemental filing that sort of explains the precise background of each of the counts if it's requested. And the bill of particulars gave a factual recitation of the conduct, but did not again specify the charge that the defendant was accused of committing. At the charge conference, so this is at trial now, at the charge conference, the jury charge conference, the people finally, for the first time, specified that the underlying misdemeanor offense for the aggravated family offense count was criminal contempt in the second degree. The jury found the defendant guilty of contempt 1, contempt 2, and aggravated family offense, and acquitted on the rest. And here, the defendant now, on appeal, he says, well, that was not specific. That was not sufficient. That was jurisdictionally defective. And we go to the Court of Appeals, and they explain that the purpose of an indictment there's a reason why a defendant has to be charged by way of an indictment for a felony. There's multiple purposes. The first purpose is to provide the defendant with fair notice of the accusations that are going to be confronted against him so he can adequately prepare. This is not a trial by ambush, or it's supposed to be a knowledgeable defense so that they can prepare properly, call the right witnesses, gather the right documents and evidence and proof. So the first purpose of an indictment is to adequately notice the defendant of the charges. The second is to allow the defendant to ensure that the crime for which he's being charged is what the grand jury returned a true bill for. So it has to match what the grand jury did. And the third is to prevent double jeopardy. You're not allowed to be tried twice for the same conduct. If you've been acquitted, you can't be retried. So it's very important for an indictment to be clear about what the charges are that the defendant's facing. And in this particular case, the majority says, the majority says that there's a jurisdictional defect here, because by failing to give the defendant the specified offense that he's alleged to have committed here, he's not able to have that adequate defense preparation. There's not the adequate protection for the grand jury, and there's not the adequate protection against double jeopardy. So simply alleging the defendant committed one of the dozens of potential specified offenses does not provide sufficient notice to prepare. And it's not the defendant's burden to figure out which charge they're charging him with. It's the people's burden to articulate on the front end in the indictment what their theory of the case is, what they're going to prove the defendant committed. And so that it's found to be jurisdictionally defective, and that count is dismissed. It doesn't make the indictment fatally defective. It doesn't kill the indictment. It just kills that count. And that's the case of People versus Sanger. Have a good day. If you like what you just saw and want to see more just like it, please hit like or subscribe to let me know.